My name is Chloe Bennett. I'm 26 years old, and the first time I understood how fragile family can be was not when I got married, not when I moved away, not when I stopped answering certain calls, but when I opened my phone 2 days after giving birth and saw my newborn's face posted to the internet with the caption, "Welcome to the world, my sweet boy. Auntie's heart is finally full." And beneath it, the tag that mattered most. The tag that wasn't a person at all but a storyline. Hashtag Baby Brooks. That was my child's middle name, Brooks, a name my husband and I had chosen in private, because it was his grandfather's name and because it sounded like steady water, like something that kept moving even when life tried to dam it up. Only 4 people knew we had picked it. Me, my husband, Ethan, my mother-in-law, Marcia, because she was our emergency contact, and my parents, Linda and Gary Bennett, because they had begged and pleaded and guilted their way into learning it for the family tree. And I had given it up in a weak moment I regretted before the call ended. The account that posted the photo was my younger sister's, Paige Bennett, 23, smiling in every photo, the family's permanent leading lady. The first comment under the post was from my mother. "God is so good. Our baby is here." And the second was from my father. "Proud of you, Paige. You're going to be such a natural." Then came dozens of likes from relatives and old neighbors, and the algorithm did what it does. It spread the story faster than the truth could catch it. And that is how my son's first public identity became my sister's accessory. 2 days postpartum, with stitches that pulled every time I stood, with a body that felt borrowed, with my brain still floating in that fog where everything is soft and sharp at the same time, I stared at my phone and felt a clean, unfamiliar anger settle into place. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was the kind of anger that becomes a plan. Before the baby, I had always tried to do things the gentle way. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, where Ethan and I moved 3 years ago for his job. Ethan is an electrical engineer, the kind who reads manuals before assembling furniture, and who never drives with the gas light on. I work in UX research for a healthcare software company, a job that basically translates into listening to people carefully and then explaining what they need to the people who build things. It sounds simple. It's not. But it suited me. I grew up in a small town outside Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in a house where the air was always a little tense, like everyone was waiting for someone else to make the first wrong move. My parents were not the kind of villains people recognize immediately. They didn't scream in grocery stores. They didn't forget to feed us. They were the kind that looked perfect in Christmas photos. Linda always had her hair done and her lipstick on. Always the first to volunteer at church. Always the first to offer help. Gary was a steady presence, a quiet man who worked in sales and learned how to be charming without committing to anything. If you asked him about our family, he would say, "We're close, we're lucky, we take care of our own." And if you asked me privately, I would have said, "We perform closeness, we confuse control with care, and we only take care of the ones who make my mother look good." Paige made Linda look good. Paige was the cheer captain in high school. Paige had the kind of laugh that made adults smile, even when they were tired. Paige never challenged Linda, not openly. Paige's mistakes were called phases. Her drama was called passion. Her lateness was called free-spirited. I was the other daughter, the one who asked too many questions, the one who wanted rules to apply equally, the one who noticed the pattern and said it out loud, which in our house was the worst possible crime. My role was the responsible one, the helper, the one who fixed what Paige broke, the one who apologized first because it kept peace. I didn't pick that role. It was assigned and then reinforced with praise whenever I complied, and coldness whenever I didn't. When I left for college, I promised myself I would not be pulled back into that orbit. I went to Penn State, took on scholarships and part-time jobs, and I built a life that didn't depend on my parents. The distance helped. Phone calls became manageable. Visits became shorter. I learned the art of being polite without being available. Then I met Ethan at a friend's game night, and he was so different from what I was used to that it felt almost suspicious at first. He asked direct questions. He remembered my answers. He didn't punish me with silence. When we started dating, my mother smiled so wide it looked like approval. But it was actually possession, because a boyfriend became a new audience. Linda loved audiences. When Ethan proposed, we did it quietly, just us. Linda found out later and cried on the phone about how she had dreamed of being there. I apologized because it was automatic. Paige posted about my engagement before I did, with a caption about how her best friend was finally getting her fairy tale, and the photo she used was one I had sent privately. That should have been a warning. I told myself it wasn't worth a fight. I told myself it was just social media. I told myself I was bigger than that. Pregnancy changes the math. It turns boundaries into necessities. It turns your body into a public conversation, and if you've grown up with controlling parents, they treat your pregnancy like a revival of their favorite sport, ownership. Linda called it our baby the moment I told her. She asked about my weight. She asked about my symptoms. She asked about my registry. She asked whether I was doing natural. She asked if I was sure about the doctor. She asked if she could be in the delivery room, because I did it twice and I know how to help. I said no, gently. She laughed like I was kidding. Ethan's mom, Marcia, never asked to be in the delivery room. She asked how she could support us, then waited for an answer. When I told Marcia I wanted privacy during labor and a couple weeks to recover, she said of course and then asked if I wanted her to bring freezer meals. She didn't take my boundary personally. Linda did. Linda heard any no as an accusation. Gary heard it as inconvenience. 3 weeks before my due date, Paige announced on Instagram that she had the biggest news coming, and our relatives flooded her comments. Linda called me and said Paige's news was going to be so exciting for the family, and I could hear the subtext. Paige was about to reclaim the spotlight. I asked what the news was. Linda said it was not her place to tell, but she laughed as if holding back confetti. Then she pivoted and asked again for the baby's name, the middle name, just in case something happens. I should have ended the call. Instead, I gave her Brooks, and my stomach sank the moment I did. My labor started on a Sunday night. It was long. It was painful. It was also, in a strange way, peaceful, because Ethan was there, and our hospital had a strict visitor policy. We had already told the nurses that no one was to be allowed in without our permission. Marcia was listed as emergency contact. Linda and Gary were not. My phone was on Do Not Disturb, but in the breaks between contractions, I saw Linda had tried calling 11 times. She sent messages that escalated from sweet to sharp, from how are you, honey, to why aren't you answering, to I have a right to know. I didn't respond. Ethan didn't respond. Our son arrived Monday afternoon, red and perfect and loud, and when they put him on my chest, my brain did that thing it does when the world shifts. It rewrites your priorities in permanent ink. My son's first breath was not going to be used as content. I didn't have the words yet, but I had the certainty. We stayed in the hospital 2 nights. We sent a single photo to family, a close-up of his tiny hand curled around Ethan's finger, no face, no identifying details, with the message that he was healthy and we were resting. We told everyone we would share more when we were home and ready. Linda responded with heart emojis and immediately asked for a full photo. Paige replied with OMG, I'm crying, and then asked if she could post the hand photo, because it's so cute. I said no. She left me on read. Gary texted that he was proud of me and that I needed to keep mom in the loop. I didn't answer. When we got home, the first day blurred. Feeding, sleeping, feeding again. The world outside our house felt far away, like a TV show playing in another room. Then, on Wednesday morning, I woke up to a buzzing phone. My coworker Jenna had texted, "Is this your baby?" with a screenshot. That's how I saw it. Paige had posted a photo of my son's face. Not the hand photo, the face. the tiny scrunched expression, the fresh hospital bracelet visible on his wrist. She had gotten the photo from somewhere, which meant someone had sent it. Either Linda had demanded it from Ethan's mom, or someone at the hospital, or Paige had stolen it from a shared cloud album. My chest tightened so hard it felt like I couldn't breathe. Then I noticed the caption and the hashtag and the comments. Paige's post framed the baby as hers to claim emotionally, and my parents' comments framed Paige as the central adult in the story. Linda used "our baby." Gary praised Paige. Relatives commented things like, "You're going to be such a good mom someday," and "he looks like you." People I hadn't spoken to in years were now assigning my son's identity to my sister. And the worst part was the quiet implication that I, the actual mother, was secondary. Ethan came into the kitchen and saw my face. He took the phone gently and read. His jaw tightened, and I saw anger flicker across him, rare and clean. He asked how she got the photo. I told him I didn't know yet, but we would find out. He asked what I wanted to do. I said I wanted it down. I said I wanted them to stop. Ethan said we could call Paige. I said no. Calling Paige was what my family wanted, a private conversation they could twist. I wanted witnesses. I wanted record. I wanted the truth to land where the lie had landed, publicly. First, I messaged Paige from my account and from Ethan's. I wrote a single line: remove the photo immediately. I did not add emojis. I did not soften it. Paige responded within minutes, acting confused. She said she was just excited. She said everyone loved it. She said I was being dramatic. She said she tagged me, which wasn't true. She said I should be grateful for the support. I replied with the same line: remove the photo immediately. Then I opened the platform's report tools and filed a privacy complaint. I also sent an email to myself with screenshots of the post, the caption, and the comments, because I have learned that the internet forgets only when it benefits the wrong people. Linda called. I didn't answer. Linda texted, "Why are you attacking Paige? She's just proud." I replied, "That is my child's face. It was shared without permission. It comes down now." Linda responded with a long paragraph about family, about how Paige needs to feel included, about how I am making motherhood about control, about how she had imagined sharing this joy with everyone. She ended with, "I'm disappointed in you." That phrase used to make me fold. This time, it made me feel oddly free, because it proved I was doing something right. Within an hour, Paige removed the photo, but she didn't apologize. She replaced it with a story post that said, "Some people don't understand family." And her friends replied with supportive hearts. Linda shared Paige's story post and added, "Hard times reveal true colors." Gary shared it too. The narrative was already shifting into their favorite shape. I was the villain for protecting my child. That would have been painful enough. It wasn't the end. The next day, a package arrived at our house. It was a baby blanket, embroidered with the name Brooks Bennett, my son's middle name and our last name, stitched in neat blue letters. There was no card. It was the kind of gift that looks sweet to outsiders. To me, it felt like a flag planted in soil that wasn't theirs. I didn't know how they got it made so fast. Then I realized Paige's post had used hashtag #BabyBrooks. She had wanted the name out there. She had wanted it to stick. The blanket wasn't a gift, it was proof of access, proof that my mother had not learned the word no. That night, Ethan and I sat at the kitchen table while our son slept in the bassinet beside us. Ethan asked if I wanted to cut them off. I said not yet. I said I wanted to understand the full pattern, because the pattern would tell us the next move. People who control don't stop. They pivot. They escalate when you resist. And with a baby, escalation can become physical. 2 days later, escalation arrived in the form of a family Facebook post. Linda posted a photo of Paige holding my son, a photo I did not remember being taken, because Paige had not been in our house. The photo was clearly from the hospital, Paige sitting on a chair with my son in her arms. Except that was impossible. Paige had not been allowed in. The visitor log didn't include her. The nurse had been strict. So where did the photo come from? I zoomed in. The lighting was slightly off around Paige's hairline. The edges of her arm looked too smooth. It was a composite, a crude but believable enough edit for the casual viewer. Linda's caption read, "Nothing like an aunt's love. Our family is complete." The comments flooded in, congratulating Paige on being so maternal, praising Linda for raising such loving daughters, and someone asked, "Did Paige fly down to help?" Linda replied, "She's been by our side through it all." Our side, not mine, not Ethan's, their side. My hands went cold. Ethan watched me scroll and asked what was wrong. I showed him the photo. He stared at it and then said quietly, "That's fake." I nodded. He asked why they would do that. I said because they were building a story where Paige was central to my child's life. And by extension, my parents were central too. A story where I was the difficult one, the gatekeeper, the ungrateful daughter who kept the baby away. If they could convince enough people of that story, it would give them social leverage. In my family, social leverage is currency. Linda uses it to recruit allies. Gary uses it to avoid responsibility. Paige uses it to avoid consequences. Marcia called that afternoon. She had seen the post. She asked if I was okay. Her voice was calm, but there was steel under it. I told her the truth, that Paige had posted the baby's face without permission, and now Linda was posting manipulated images, implying Paige was present. Marcia asked if we had sent any photos to Linda recently. I said no. Marcia said she hadn't either. Then Marcia said something that changed everything. She asked whether Linda had access to my old Apple account, the one from college, the one I used before Ethan helped me set up a family share plan. I froze. I hadn't thought about that account in years. Linda had the password once because she helped me set up my phone when I was 18. Linda never forgets access. She collects it. She keeps it like spare keys. I went upstairs and pulled out my old laptop. I tried logging into the account. The password didn't work. I clicked Forgot Password. The recovery email was one I didn't recognize. The recovery phone number was my mother's. My stomach flipped. Linda had changed the recovery settings, which meant she could reset it whenever she wanted. That account had years of photos, old backups, shared albums, everything, including the hospital photos Ethan had taken on his phone, because at some point, when our phones synced to Wi-Fi, it likely backed up to the old cloud association. The exact technical path didn't matter. What mattered was simple. My mother had access to my baby's photos, without my consent. I felt sick in a way that wasn't postpartum. It was betrayal, clean and sharp. Ethan asked what we needed to do. I said we needed to lock everything down, and we needed to stop treating this like family drama and start treating it like a privacy and safety issue. Ethan nodded, then did what he does. He turned the problem into steps. We changed every password. We removed old devices. We turned on two-factor authentication. We contacted Apple support and began the account recovery process. We wiped cloud-shared albums. We created a new private folder for baby photos. No shared links. We also called the hospital and asked for the visitor log. And we requested confirmation of our visitor restrictions. Because if someone had snuck in, we needed evidence. The hospital confirmed no unauthorized visitors had been admitted. That helped. It meant the hospital wasn't the leak. The leak was my mother. Then we did the next thing. We stopped hoping she would stop on her own. We sent one message, written together, calm and clear, to Linda, Gary, and Paige. Any photos of our child posted publicly or shared without explicit permission must be removed immediately. Any future attempts to access accounts, photos, or medical information will be treated as interference. All communication will be in writing. No drop-ins, no surprise visits. If you show up uninvited, you will not be let in. We will involve authorities if necessary. Linda replied with outrage. She said we were threatening family. She said we were treating them like criminals. She said she could not believe her own daughter would do this. Gary replied with a single sentence about how we should cool down. Paige replied with a crying emoji, and then posted another story about toxic relatives. The usual. But something else happened too. My aunt, Linda's sister, texted me privately and asked if the posts were true. She asked whether Paige really had been at the hospital. I told her no. I told her the photo was edited. I told her Paige had posted my baby's face without permission. My aunt went quiet. Then she said she believed me. She said Linda had done something similar years ago with cousin photos, and she remembered it because it made her uncomfortable. She said she didn't know what to do, but she didn't like what Linda was doing. That was the first crack in Linda's audience. Linda responded by escalating again. On Sunday, she posted a long public message about grandparents being cut off, about how some mothers weaponize children, about how aunties are being punished, and she attached a photo of the embroidered blanket. She did not tag me, but everyone knew. The comments poured in. Some people sympathized with her. Some asked questions. Some offered prayer hands and hearts. Linda loved it. Linda fed on it. Then, in the comments, Paige wrote, "It hurts when you love someone's baby more than they love you." That sentence was designed like a knife. It implied I didn't love my own child. It implied I was cold. It implied Paige was the loving one. That night, Ethan received a message from Paige's boyfriend. Or rather, Paige's new boyfriend, a man named Trevor I had met once at Christmas. Trevor apologized for the mess. He said Paige had been crying. He said Linda had been really upset. He said he didn't know us well, but he hoped we could all talk. He included one line that made my stomach drop again. He said Paige felt entitled to a relationship with Brooks because she has been helping with him since day one. Helping since day one. Paige had not held my baby. She had not fed him. She had not changed a diaper. She had not brought a meal. She had posted his face and called it love. They were rewriting the story so aggressively that outsiders were now repeating it. That is how reputational pressure works. Ethan asked me if I wanted him to reply. I said no. I said we needed a stronger move. Not emotional, structural. Marcia suggested we speak to her friend, a family law attorney, not to sue, but to understand our options. We met with the attorney over a video call while Brooks slept on Ethan's chest. The attorney listened and then said the words I had been trying not to think. If your parents are accessing your accounts without permission and posting your child's images, and if they are building a public narrative of being cut off, it can be a precursor to harassment, and in some cases, to a bogus wellness report or a custody interference attempt. She said sometimes controlling grandparents call CPS with false claims. Sometimes they show up at daycare. Sometimes they try to get medical information. The attorney told us to document everything and to preemptively lock down care settings. She told us to choose a pediatrician office with strict privacy protocols. She told us to put a password on all records. She told us to alert our building management and neighbors not to allow access. She told us to send a formal cease and desist letter regarding the images and unauthorized account access. She told us to be calm, because calm makes you credible. So we did. The letter went out Tuesday morning via certified mail and email. It stated that they were to remove all photos and any posts implying false involvement. It stated that they were to cease attempting to access accounts or private information. It stated that further violations would be documented and could be used in legal proceedings. It was polite, it was firm, it was not negotiable. Linda responded by calling me from a blocked number. When I didn't answer, she called Ethan. When he didn't answer, she showed up at our apartment building. She came with Gary and Paige, like a small marching band of entitlement. Our building has a secure entry, but Linda smiled at another resident and slipped in behind them, because Linda has always been good at charming strangers. She knocked on our door like nothing was wrong. I watched through the peephole while holding Brooks against my shoulder. My hands weren't shaking. I didn't feel fear. I felt a cold steadiness that made me realize I had finally become the adult in the room. Ethan stood beside me. He asked if I wanted to talk. I said no. I said we would not reward a boundary violation with access. Ethan called building management. Management came up and told Linda she was not permitted to be on the floor without an invited resident. Linda tried to cry. Linda tried to explain. Linda tried to talk about family. The manager did not care. The manager asked her to leave. Linda refused. The manager called security. Security escorted them out. Paige looked at me through the peephole as if she could see me. For the first time, I imagined what it must feel like to be Paige when the stage disappears. Within an hour, Linda posted again, claiming she had been thrown out while trying to bring gifts. She posted a photo of a bag of baby items. She said she was being treated like a stranger. She said my husband was controlling me. She said she feared for the baby. That last part was not an accident. It was a seed meant to grow into something official. The next day, that seed sprouted. A police officer knocked on our door for a wellness check. Someone had reported that I was postpartum and unstable, that I was refusing family support, that my husband was isolating me, and that the baby might be in danger. I knew immediately who had done it. Linda had used the same tactic once when Paige's friend stopped answering her. Linda called the girl's parents and suggested she was on something. It had caused chaos. Linda called it caring. The officer was kind but obligated. He asked to see the baby. He asked if I felt safe. Ethan stood calmly and handed him the letter we had sent, plus screenshots of Linda's posts and the building incident report. The officer looked at the documents, then looked at my calm face, then looked at Brooke sleeping peacefully in my arms. He asked a few more questions, and then said quietly that this looked like a family dispute being weaponized. He said he would note it. He said if they came again, we should reference the prior report number. When the door closed, I sat on the couch and felt a tremor run through me. Not fear, but a delayed reaction to the reality that my parents had escalated to involving law enforcement to pressure me into compliance. That is not love. That is coercion. Ethan sat beside me and asked what I needed. I said I needed this to end. I said I needed to protect our son from becoming a tool in Linda's hands. Ethan said, then we go one step stronger. The attorney helped us file a formal harassment notice and a request that future wellness checks consider the pattern. We also called our pediatrician office and placed a password on Brooks's records. We called our daycare waitlist office and told them only Ethan and I could pick up, no grandparents. We installed a door camera. We informed neighbors. We locked down everything. It felt extreme. It also felt like relief. 2 weeks passed with relative quiet. Linda's posts became vague, then less frequent. Paige stopped posting baby-related content. Gary sent a single message that said, "You're tearing the family apart." I didn't reply. Silence can be a boundary too. Then the second twist arrived from the least expected person, my father. He emailed a confession and asked to meet in public. He admitted he'd enabled my mother's control for years because challenging her felt impossible. And he showed me saved messages where Linda and Paige planned posts, pushed my baby's name for clout, and talked about using a wellness check if I didn't come back into line. He agreed to therapy and to support our boundaries in writing. That meeting gave us leverage, not the petty kind, the safety kind. We sent a final message to Linda and Paige through the attorney with a clear statement. We have evidence of unauthorized account access, manipulated images, and threats to weaponize wellness checks. All images must be removed. All contact must cease unless and until counseling occurs and written boundaries are accepted. Any further harassment will result in a protective order request. Linda did not respond directly. Paige did. Paige sent me a message that looked like apology at first glance, but it was actually bargaining. Paige wrote that she never meant harm. She just wanted to be involved. She loved Brooks. She felt excluded. She felt like I had stolen the first grandbaby attention. That last line told the truth. Paige wasn't grieving distance. She was grieving spotlight. Paige asked if she could at least post a photo of her and Brooks once he was older, because it would mean a lot. I didn't answer. Then the third twist arrived in the form of my aunt, Linda's sister, calling me. She said Linda had been telling extended family that I was unwell. She said Linda had been asking relatives to pressure me. She said some relatives had believed her, but after the wellness check rumor and the building incident, people were starting to question Linda's story. My aunt said she had seen the manipulated hospital photo and noticed the editing. She said she had confronted Linda privately. Linda had exploded. Linda had said everyone was ungrateful. Linda had said she was the only one holding the family together. My aunt said she was tired of being recruited into Linda's wars. She said she supported me. She said she was sorry she hadn't spoken up sooner. That mattered. Not because I needed a crowd, but because Linda's power depended on the crowd. Control thrives in silence. Witnesses weaken it. December came. Brooke started smiling at ceiling fans. And for a moment, life felt quiet. Then Paige asked to talk without Linda. She admitted she liked the attention, that Linda coached her to shame me publicly, and that she helped build the aunt story because it kept her centered. I told her accountability would be actions, not tears. Remove everything, stop indirect posts, and accept written boundaries. The next day, Paige posted a short statement on her account. It did not mention my name. It said she had shared an image of her nephew without permission, and that she had posted a manipulated image that implied she was at the hospital when she was not. She said it was wrong. She said she was learning about boundaries and consent and would not post him again. She turned off comments. Linda's friends noticed and started messaging Paige. Paige did not respond publicly. Instead, she deleted the old content. Linda reacted like a storm. She posted that Paige was being brainwashed. She posted that Chloe was controlling everyone. She posted that family loyalty was dead. She posted that she was being punished for love. Paige did not reply. Gary did something that stunned our relatives. He commented on Linda's post, calmly, that Linda had crossed boundaries and needed to stop. He said Chloe and Ethan were protecting their child. He said he supported that. Then he logged off. It wasn't a dramatic takedown. It was a public refusal to enable. In my family, that was revolutionary. The final resolution came in January at my grandfather's memorial service back in Pittsburgh. The kind of gathering my mother loved because it came with an audience. I went without the baby, with clear rules in my pocket, and Ethan at my side. Linda tried to hug me and perform forgiveness. I stepped back and repeated the boundary. Counseling and written respect first, access second. When Linda raised her voice and tried to paint me as cruel, my father, for the first time in my life, stepped between us and told her to stop in front of everyone. Paige stayed quiet, and the room watched my mother's story collapse without the usual applause. Afterward, Paige handed me a list of old accounts and recovery numbers Linda had been using and apologized again, this time with actions attached. Linda still posted vague quotes sometimes, but fewer people interacted. Her stage was shrinking. Gary started therapy. Paige started therapy. Paige got a job outside our hometown and moved in with a roommate. She didn't ask Linda's permission. She didn't announce it for applause. She just did it. Ethan and I kept our boundaries. Linda did not meet Brooks, not because we were cruel, but because she refused counseling and refused accountability. She wanted access without change. That is not a relationship. It's a takeover. If she ever chooses differently, the door can be reconsidered. But I learned that a door without a lock is not kindness. It's negligence. One more attempt came right before things finally cooled. A daycare center I'd toured weeks earlier called to confirm grandparent pickup permissions. The receptionist read names I had never provided: Linda Bennett and Paige Bennett. My throat tightened because it meant someone had called pretending to be me, trying to add them to a list that would put my son in their hands without my knowledge. I didn't panic, not outwardly. I asked the daycare to forward the email request, and within minutes, I had it. a message from an address that looked like mine at a glance, one swapped letter. The kind of trick people use when they think staff are too busy to notice. Attached was a fake authorization with my type name. Ethan and I drove to the center that afternoon with our IDs, our attorney's letter, and a single calm sentence we practiced in the car. Our child is not available for negotiation. The director was horrified. She pulled security footage of the earlier tour and recognized Linda from the lobby incident photos I had shown her. She promised that no one would be added without in-person verification, and she flagged our file with a password. Then she asked if we wanted her to file a report for attempted identity misuse. I said yes because I was done treating family like a shield for behavior that would be unacceptable from anyone else. That report didn't put anyone in jail, but it did something just as important. It created a time-stamped record that we were dealing with a pattern of interference, not a one-off misunderstanding. When Linda later tried to claim she was only offering help, the paperwork said otherwise. It was the moment I stopped feeling afraid of her reactions and started feeling clear about my responsibilities. My job was not to preserve Linda's image. My job was to protect my child and my peace. When people ask me now what happened, I tell them that my parents tried to claim my baby on social media to boost my sister. And when I push back, they tried to punish me with public narrative and official pressure. I tell them I chose safety over performance. That is the moral I carry, and it fits in one sentence. But it takes a lifetime to learn. If someone needs an audience to love you, they don't love you. They love the role you play for them. If you are living in a family where your boundaries are treated like betrayal, remember this. Your child is not a peace offering. Your body is not public property. Your no does not require a debate. And the people who rage at your boundaries are telling you exactly why you needed them. The day my sister posted my son's face as if it belonged to her story, I felt something end in me. The day I locked our accounts and refused to open my door to people who wouldn't respect it, I felt something begin. Brooks is a baby. He doesn't know about captions or hashtags or manipulated images. He knows warmth, milk, arms, safety. He knows that when he cries, someone comes. That is the kind of family I am building. A family where love shows up quietly, where protection matters more than appearances, and where no one has to perform for permission to belong. Here is the part I wish someone had told me earlier, in plain language, without guilt wrapped around it. If a parent treats your boundaries as an insult, it's not because your boundary is wrong. It's because your boundary blocks their access to a role they feel entitled to. People who love you in a healthy way might be disappointed for a moment, but they adjust because your comfort matters to them. People who love the control will escalate because the point was never the baby, the photos, the holiday, or the tradition. The point was proving they still get to decide. And if you grew up being trained to keep the peace, you will confuse escalation for emotion. You will tell yourself, they're only acting this way because they care so much. That's the trap. Care that requires your surrender is not care. It's a transaction. Love is consent. Love is respect. Love is asking, then accepting the answer. I still hope my mother chooses a different path someday, because hope is human, but hope is not a plan. My plan is the life Ethan and I are building, the quiet mornings, the locked accounts, the calm home, and a child who will never have to earn safety by performing.